You're listening to the Rise to Thrive podcast with your hosts, Linda Tate and Amelia Travis. Rise to Thrive is your life resource for manifestation, wellness, and abundance. Tune in weekly so you can thrive daily. This week's episode coming at you. Hi, my name's Amelia, and I'm addicted to knowing.
Welcome to Rise to Thrive, episode 12, Addicted to Knowing. Do you need to know more? Why do you need to know more? Keep learning more. Know more.
So what we're talking about today is what happens when you become addicted to education, continuing education, or the pursuit of knowledge, and examining whether that's happening in a healthy way, in a place that's rooted in self-love and in desire for growth, or if it's rooted in a place of insecurity and lack. So, Linda, welcome to today's show.
Thanks, Amelia. You welcome too.
You're welcome too. So, so we wanted to talk about this because it's a topic that's very dear to both of our hearts. We are both passionate about education and are both students and teachers, right? Mm-hmm. Many different modalities. And as we continue to grow through life, there's continual opportunities to learn more, to become more educated, to gain more knowledge about all sorts of different things that we're passionate about. But sometimes the pursuit of that education can be an excuse for inaction, right? Have you ever found yourself saying that you wanted to do something, but feeling stuck because you felt like you didn't have the right credential?
Well, I'll start doing that. I'll start coaching when I have that. I'll start it when I have that. It's like if, then.
Right. And so perhaps you recognize this in yourself. And for some of us, it can almost be a pattern of even if we technically have everything that we need to start offering a particular service or doing certain new hobby or breaking into a new industry, we feel like that we won't be truly prepared or good enough unless we accumulate more evidence of our knowledge, right? And that usually comes in the form of like courses, certifications, degrees.
A piece of paper.
Pieces of paper, right? We become paper collectors. And I don't know about you, but like I have quite a few pieces of paper, and I can think of lots more pieces of paper that I could get and that I even could use as an excuse to not be doing what I'm doing right now. Like, let's just use a tangible example. I currently am a coach. The coaching that I do spans across life coaching and business coaching, and I do not have a credential or certificate or a piece of paper that declares that I'm a coach, right? I feel like I'm a coach because I did the damn thing. I can coach on business because I built a business. When I coach on life coaching, it's coaching on my particular areas that I've grown through as it pertains to self-worth and body image and addiction and recovery and relationships and communication. But it's always coming from a place of experience, right? Mm-hmm. And so there have been times, and it happens for me still all the time, that I could talk myself into this story of like, you're not good enough to be coaching. You need to go get X, Y, or Z credential from X, Y, or Z institution so that you can be allowed to play in this arena, right? And if I were to listen to that, first of all, it would be many tens of thousands of dollars poorer right now. I would be perhaps struggling to like make ends meet, but more importantly, I wouldn't be impacting the lives that I'm currently impacting or helping other people rise into who they are if I were waiting on that piece of paper.
It's like start before you're ready.
It's like start before you're ready. By the way, shameless plug, if you have not listened to episode 1 of Rise to Thrive podcast, you need to get your little tail over to that episode right now, or as soon as this one is finished, and have a listen, because it is a game changer.
I agree with you. I think what's interesting is there's so many different paths of education. Like maybe in my mind, I've experienced traditional education, like high school, right from high school, go to college, kind of had to. That was when I was an athlete. And from that left a 4-year degree with a double major. I remember like yesterday being in my last year of school, first semester, going to a career fair. And it was the first time in 4 years that I was like, oh my God, swimming ends in 5 months. Like I have to get a job. And this panic took over, and I'm 20 and I'm like freaking out. And that was my experience, where it was just a lot of confusion. I hadn't really contemplated that because I was so focused on sport. And then really the next decade of this like self-discovery around what am I here for on this lovely planet. And I've definitely been known to be teased a few times because I have lots of papers. And one of my friends tells me that I have expensive hobbies. And I beg to differ, where anything that at a certain point when I continued my education, it was really like the curiosity that took me to the place where I wanted to do it. And I also had experienced feelings of lack, doubt, time filling, space holding. And it's interesting because there's that question of, even still, do I keep going? Do I keep going? Do I want a master's? What would college look like now? And I can feel the difference between lack, not good enough, and pure curiosity, joy, continuing the education. And I think that can provide a healthy framework from the decision to take action in continued learning. What are the reasons behind it? That's the question that's helped me the most.
Yeah, and I think that's the question that we're here today to chat through and to discuss is, you know, for the aspects of your life that you currently want to grow or expand. So if you're listening, perhaps you have a business idea or brand idea that you want to either create or grow and scale. And if you think about, you know, or perhaps it's an endeavor that you want to undertake, like taking a yoga teacher training or something. I think most of us, there's always something that we want to learn in an area that we want to grow. And so when you think about that thing, I do think that's the first check-in is like, are you approaching it right now from a place of love and curiosity and a genuine desire to just expand and to become a more multifaceted human and to become the human that you desire to be and that you were created to be? Or are you coming from a place that's punitive and negative, reflecting on yourself and feeling like I'm not good enough because I don't have this thing yet? Or are you constructing it as an artifice, like an artificial barrier to the thing that you desire to do, and you're using it as an excuse?
Procrastination.
Right, exactly, to not get where you want to go. And as it relates to like higher education, I will say, like, I know people who have a PhD and are underemployed or unemployed, and likewise people who never graduated high school who are successful 6 or 7 figure entrepreneurs. So the correlation between education and financial success or financial well-being is one that I think deserves to be like it's we can destabilize that a little bit and say, like, it's not a necessary correlation. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily, you know, the more pieces of paper you have, the more money you're going to make. And it's also not necessarily the more pieces of paper you have, the more confident you are going to be, and the more you're going to believe in yourself.
The person with the PhD, and I've seen this before, where, you know, it's like got all the different degrees, but still afraid to take the action. And then sitting there like, what I thought that this training or this degree would have changed that. And at the end of the day, wherever you go, there you are. And you're like, oh shit, I still have to kind of overcome the fears that maybe 20 years ago were the same freaking fears. Mm-hmm. And bummer, wish I would have done that work maybe as I was going through all these additional programs and certifications. But, you know, I think that's the common denominator is you are there. And what really, like when you think of traditional education, what are the skills that you will develop, and why do you want to make that decision investment? A friend of mine, I heard her say, like, you know, all the jobs that I want to have, I need to have a college degree. And so like now I'm deciding, do I want the college degree? And 2019, it's such an interesting time to ask that question in that way because of the entrepreneurship landscape. You know, it's like a myriad of paths. Do you need to have the college degree? And I can say that perhaps even taking very much for granted my college degree. You know, I don't know what it feels like to not have one and to not get the job that maybe I needed it.
I mean, I can speak to that though. Like I'm 33. I have 3 associate's degrees. I'll be completing a bachelor's degree this spring in a few months. And so I very much have been in and out of college since age 17. So for 16 years, and I've chosen different majors and different paths. And I think I was a lot like, you know, this person that you're talking about for many of those years, feeling like, well, once I figure it out and once I figure out what the major is, and then once I get that piece of paper, then this perfect dream job and dream life will just unfold. It'll just be there. It'll be the next logical step. But the funny thing that happened in between all of the times of getting those degrees was, you know, working different jobs, selling insurance, you know, selling loans, being a blood bank recruiter, working as a flight attendant, managing an art gallery, like working in restaurants, obviously food service, all of these different things. One of the biggest things that I learned is that even jobs that say that you need to have a college degree, some it'll be required. And obviously if it's like the federal government, then that's a hard line. But for many, really what they're looking for with you having a college degree is your ability to complete something, and sometimes specialized knowledge in a particular field, right? But it really does depend on the job. I would argue that there are jobs, say let's use marketing as an example, where you could have a degree in communications or in marketing, and or you could have built a sustainable, successful little empire for yourself that's related to social media marketing or branding. And if these 2 candidates were to go in and interview for a job as a marketing director at XYZ company, and candidate B was able to say, experientially, here's everything that I've done, here's what I've created, here's the evidence of it, I'm a better candidate than candidate A that has this degree, that companies will look on that favorably, or at the very least will look on it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's something too that, you know, it's funny being in college and being with younger people who are in their early 20s, they're kind of around that same age that you were talking about, and they're looking at their upcoming graduation date. And I see so many of them like either so excited because, which is beautiful, like but they feel like it's finally about to start, like life is finally about to start, or they're fucking terrified for the same reason, because they're like, oh my gosh, in, you know, a few months, my real life is going to start, and I have to get my internship to turn into a job. And they feel like, you know, we want to kind of actually take back this label, but imposter syndrome, where they feel like that sense of like, people are going to find out that even though I have this piece of paper, I don't know anything, or I don't know how to do anything. And I think that that's fair, because as a 30-something college student sitting in these classrooms, and this is kind of just speaking to the state of education overall for the most part in the United States, which is where we're both from, the system is not really designed to teach you how to be creative, to teach you how to be an entrepreneur, to teach you what I would argue are actually the necessary skills for most jobs. Like, you know, the system teaches you how to
clip into a system,
right? How to synthesize and assimilate information, and how to regurgitate it or spit out the correct answer. And then there's, you know, I'm having an interesting experience of finishing school, like breaking that mold and not having the attachment to feeling like I need to necessarily even write my paper this particular way, or I need to show up this particular way in class, but just having the freedom of being detached, one, from getting the degree. And so I can just kind of be there and actually receive the experience. And it's interesting to see how different that is from the experience that most of the people are having, which is, you know, sheer panic if they're not going to finish paper on time. And it's like, you know, the person who's grading that is just a human too, who's been doing this for 20 years and read 40,000 papers.
The first page and the last page.
Yeah. Right. It's like,
I actually just had a flash of like going back to traditional education, and I would feel myself being like, but why do I have to do that? And
exactly.
like not doing it.
And the beautiful thing about that is the exact quality that in you right now is setting you up for massive success in the entrepreneur realm, because it's that ability to critically think and to examine, to say, oh, well, this is the path that's laid out, but does that make sense? Is that the best path? Is that the only path? Or are there many other ways that we could do this? And are some of those innovative and haven't been done before and like better, right? And so it's a quality too that like every employer, well, maybe not every employer, but like I would say many would want their employees to have, is like continually looking at things from a fresh perspective and figuring out whether
spirit
or not
of
it's
innovation.
working. Yeah. So I think, first checking in with like, how do you actually feel about the education experiences that you've had in the past, the credentials that you currently hold or lack thereof, and like what story are you telling yourself about those things?
And like, why do you need it?
Yeah. For me, it's kind of easy, I guess, to say that now because I am at the place where I'm like about to graduate with this 16-year bachelor's degree. But even as I say that, and even as I put the emphasis on that right now, there is an element of either embarrassment or shame or like a little bit of something that I'm clearly still holding on to, because like, who cares how long it took?
Right.
Who cares how old you are relative to the other people that are in there sharing the same education experience? And so I think it's important to acknowledge too, that we have societal stigma, and it's a class stigma really around education and how much of it you have and at what point you completed it. And I think that can be detrimental to us because like your experience, Linda, like in college was, it's kind of just what you have to do. You wanted to be an athlete, you wanted to swim. And so in order to have that experience, you needed to go to a 4-year institution, and you went to a very good one, and you needed to declare a major, and you needed to see it through. And it's like, how many young people are doing that, and their parents or themselves are going into a significant amount of debt to study something that maybe was kind of like point and shoot, like, okay, I'll pick that one. You know what I mean? Because you've got to pick something.
Like, I want to do business school. Oh, can't make it into the business school, have too many C's. I'm going to do sports medicine. Oh, you have now D's because you decided to do that for a semester. Okay, I guess I'll do maybe philosophy. Oh, we have the best philosophy program in the country. I'm not smart enough for that. All right, now I'm 2 years into college and have all these general ed credits that literally are journalism and psychology. My parents saying, you get 4 years out of us, swimming career going the way it's going. I'm like, I just have to finish this. I'm eligible for my sport. I'm going to have a double major done. And when you say you have 3 associates, there were so many times that I was like, maybe I should do my bachelor's over in something I actually like love and care about. And the degrees that I happen to study, I'm a very concise writer and communicator, and I love psych. So it wasn't like a lost ship that had sailed.
Absolutely not. And I think it's so funny to hear you say that now, because here we are literally sitting doing a version of broadcast journalism, which is podcasting, right? That is based on elements of psychology. I mean, we're talking
Take a look at it now, Rutgers.
We're talking about manifestation, mindset, abundance, and like pretty much every single episode that we talk about, really what it's boiling down to is, how do you view yourself? What are the stories you're telling yourself? Like, where's your head?
How's your mind?
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Your mind right.
Mind, right? And so that's so funny. And then when I look at mine, it's like, yeah, studio arts, also journalism, literature and writing studies, which is, I'm like, now I'm thinking I really should have done communications. But it's like, when you have this thought of like, well, maybe I'll go back and I'll do another bachelor degree, then for me as like an outsider looking in, is like, why would we first rely on like that institution to give us the credibility or the knowledge? And maybe it's the structure that we need, maybe it's the discipline, and maybe it's the container, right, that we need. But then there's this other option of like, anything that you want to learn now today, you can learn as an autodidact. You can read, you can take courses, you have find
full
a teacher,
access,
right? Yeah, I mean, just as a human being with the ability to breathe and move and have agency in the world. Like you could create your own learning experience on anything that you want to learn about. Like you could go find an apprenticeship, you could find a mentor, you know.
I have an experience right now where I have met a man that has not completed college, very, very, very successful. And he just said, yeah, whatever I didn't know, I learned. And that was from 30, 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now when we have full access today to the internet and so much, I mean, so much that you can learn on your own. And I think the misnomer of like, well, I need to get the degree for that job. It's like, let's talk about that job for a second.
Mm-hmm.
What's that job like? Do you really like that job? What about the job do you like?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, you know, you spend 40 plus hours of your week in this lifestyle commitment
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, the job title or the salary or whatever looks great, but does that work for you? And that's what I would encourage anybody that's considering different elements of a life change to get really clear on what the experience looks and feels like, because the job that is like the title and the company that looks so great may actually not be, when you're a month or two in it, an experience that you're really wanting to have.
Even the vision of self, like I remember you saying your vision of self was like pencil skirt and pumps, right? And you had this, and it's like we're laughing, but like this is really what we do, is we create meaning and we create a story out of symbols, right? So for you, the pencil skirt and pumps were symbols of empowered feminine, you're being your own boss, like financial success, importance, or like recognition from the community, right? That you're a woman about her business. You're doing something that matters in the world that requires you to wear these particular pieces of clothing. And then that same outfit 7 years down the road was bondage. It was like, you were like, get me, I can't wear these clothes anymore, right?
Just crying.
So like what meaning, and this is what I'm hearing you saying, like what meaning are you giving the job, and not just the job, but who you think you will be in that job, right? And then can you like reflect on what elements of that person are in you already? Because I'm going to argue that it's all of them. They're just perhaps not being given the breath or the energy or the attention that they need.
Dormant.
Yeah, they're not being currently cultivated. And so you want the container of the degree and the job because you feel like those will give you the space to cultivate those aspects of yourself. And I think what we're suggesting is that that is absolutely one way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And there's also absolutely at the other end of the spectrum, in a sense, flipping the script and you cultivating those aspects of self right now, exactly where you are, and maybe releasing a little bit of exactly what that's going to turn into or that's going to look like. Right. So I think, I think that we often have a vision of who we think we want to be and what we need in order for society to agree with us that we are that person. And then I guess the underlying question of that is like, do you really need society to agree? Or can you decide in your own agency and autonomy that you are
a rock star,
that thing? Yeah, that you're that badass, that you're that successful businesswoman, and can you create your own vision of what that looks like? Now, not everyone wants to do that.
Right.
Some people are like, Amelia, Linda, that's great, but I really just want the job working for Bob's Sawdust Mill as their foreman manager because that's what I'm really good at, and I want the 401k. And like, in order to do that, they're requiring me to go to night school and get my bachelor's degree in business management.
That feels aligned.
Yeah, it does. And we're celebrating that. Like, we're absolutely in no way, shape, or form suggesting that we should just throw all education out the window. In fact, we're both, like I said, students and teachers and lifelong learners, mm-hmm. right? Perennial students and totally advocates for education in all forms. In fact, I would even say that this podcast is an educational tool. What? Yeah, right?
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting is when you pivot from traditional education to, let's just call it growth or personal development.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout my journey, I had experienced a lot of different kind of like educational, whether it's certificates, wanting to know mores. And there were definitely a few of those times that I did it because I didn't think I was good enough. And I was like, without even a second thought, dropping X hundreds or thousands of dollars, doing it. Maybe it's an online program. Maybe I didn't even start it fully, or like started and not finish it. And, that was like a painful experience in some ways because it was a lot of money.
Yeah, I had to put a firm limit on myself that said you are not allowed to purchase any more online courses, any more knowledge commerce. And beyond that, I set a line for myself, like you're not even allowed to open the emails from the people who it's them offering you some sort of new course or whatever. And
what's the weirdest one you bought?
I don't really think any of them are that weird. I think mine are, and I'll just be totally transparent in it. Mine were like Melissa Griffin, Amanda Bucci, Lauren Elise Love. So other women coaches, women in the entrepreneurial space who I perceive that they're, doing it better, doing it bigger, making more money. They're somehow further down the line of where I want to be or who I want to be. And I just like you, I bought, oh my gosh, probably a couple $1,000s worth of courses. And I would say on the whole have maybe completed 10% of the work of those courses. And this is obviously over the span of a few years. And this year, I always allocate for myself $3,000 a year for continuing education. That's usually spent within yoga, or now yoga and personal development, now yoga, personal development, and entrepreneurship. And I feel really good about having that budget. And I think it's awesome to spend it on in-person retreat or training experiences on specific things that I want to know. You want to learn more about EFT? Great. NLP? Great. Go learn that stuff. But I do think that the online courses for me have been compulsive buying from a place of insecurity. And I know that because there's a certain feeling that I have when my finger is hovering over the buy now button, right? Or I'm putting in the credit card information. And it's like that. It's the same feeling that I used to have scoring drugs. Same exact feeling.
It's going to fix it.
It's going to fix it. Pretty soon it's going to all feel really good. I probably shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to fucking do it anyway. And I better hurry up and do it quick before someone catches me, or I realize
I don't really need this.
And this is not actually good for me. And I'm not bashing online education either. I'm actually currently, I have Rock Your Retreat, and I have a group coaching program, and I believe that online education is an awesome tool. And it's it's a great way, especially, if you live far from different training programs, or it's a great thing for a lot of different reasons. I think it's again, checking in with what's your why, and then where's your head at, when you are buying that thing. And so for me, it was literally for the remainder of 2019, I am not allowed to hit the buy now on anything else. If I want to go learn something, great, go learn the 6 online courses that you already bought. You know what I mean? There's plenty of material there.
I think
I'm sure I could grow from.
I think Linda.com with the Y, Linda with a Y. And some of these online, I think it was maybe even just that, but just these crowdsourced, it's easy to buy these packaged, Learn Excel. I think I even did a Learn EFT, but speed reading. And it's $20 to $100.
So you can read faster through all the online courses that you purchase.
And that's a very, I also have successfully completed some life-changing online programs that I wouldn't have taken back in a second. And the difference was the energy of the purchase. And one would have been my health coaching, where, for 5 years I thought about doing it. And I don't know if it was just my 75th marketing impression and I finally hit buy, or if really I was I can get behind this curriculum. I think it's the latter. That was my experience. And some transformational in-person programs. And I learned in one of them specifically to personal development, a formula that has resonated with me and that I kind of made my own. And so it was to consume like personal development content daily of some trusted medium, probably outside of social media, so you can just consume it, whether a book or, your trusted online resource.
Rise to Thrive podcast.
Rise to Thrive podcast. Tune in weekly to Thrive Daily. 2 to 4 times, or even 1 to 4 times a month, like in-person immersion.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, to have some kind of accountability partner, whether a friend, a coach, a mentor, but all of this being kind of on the umbrella of growth. This is some Tony Robbins speak,
mm-hmm.
but I remember the first time I heard it and I was like, oh, I've kind of already been doing that. And I've had my coaches, I do some kind of annual immersion, sometimes more than once a year. And I listen or consume content daily that is of personal development. And when I simplify it to that and kind of plan for a year, how and what do I want that to look like this year? What is my focus or passion or interest right now, what will serve what I'm creating, that's been helpful to make those decisions.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you're saying that most of us could benefit from is looking at the long game, looking at a bigger picture, because I think a lot of times we feel like a sense of urgency when it comes to getting the education. And that sense of urgency is tied into this belief system that we are going to be a different person when we finish the thing, right? And it's like, consistency and little bite-sized changes that happen every day and that become habituated in both your mind and your body and just become part of your personal practice. That's where real lasting change comes from.
Right. Have you ever left a weekend course when you're learned all the tools and then it's Monday and you have the personal development hangover and you're like, but nothing's different.
Yeah. And I've also had the experience of attending an event like that and having an expectation that, I think this is exactly what you're saying, having an expectation that I would be different and not feeling the impact in the actual event itself and not feeling it in the few days that follow. But then after a period of integration, actually experiencing shift or growth or change, but maybe it's a month after that, or maybe it's 6 months after that, or maybe it took a year for somehow those seeds to actually be planted and germinate and sprout in me, where I'm like, oh, something just shifts and clicks. But for the most part, for me, every time there's been a big shift or a big change, there's really just 2 elements to it. And one is the element of surrender, or of giving up control or giving up my preconceived idea about how it's going to happen. Right. And then the second element is messy, inspired action. Just do something.
Do something.
Figure out what is the next right thing that you can do, and do that. Even if it's only 1/100th or 1/1000th of what your big picture is, there's always something that you can do right now to move towards the goal, to move towards the healing, to move towards the condition or the state that you desire to be in. 100%, there's always, do you think there's a time that not? Sure, maybe if
no,
you're locked in a room somewhere.
I think you need to. What can happen though, and I think often happens to so many, is have you given yourself the time to really consider what you want your life to look like, which then will let you know what your goals will look like, which then will let you know what your inspired, aligned, massive action will look like. And if you haven't really sat down and done some of that work, then how are you supposed to align the action steps? And that's really what's your why behind wanting to do that? I was laughing for a second because, and this is a side note, I think there can be also education that just sounds really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like has this charm or curiosity to you that you're like, I have to do this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And for me right now, I'm like obsessed with doing my XPT weekend certification. XPT is this kind of like recovery training.
Mm-hmm.
It's physical, and then it's like cold therapy
Mm-hmm.
and some breath work.
Like a Wim Hof, but
it's
different.
Wim Hof.
Oh.
It's Gabby and Laird Hamilton.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, actually, they're right down the street.
Our neighbors.
Yeah, but I would love to do that. And what that reminded me of is when I curiously took your SUP yoga teacher training.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually how Amelia and I met. And I had heard about it from a friend in the community. And I was like, well, why would I do that? I don't even have my yoga teacher training. Mm-hmm. And I was at a job that I was feeling completely like max burnt out of. And I was like, you know what? Like, I haven't had a day off in 7 months. Like, I'm going to just take Friday off and do this training. And it was following like the charm though, that led me to like that, and meeting people that to this day, you included, have had like transformational impact in my life. And so, you know, your whys can just be because of curiosity and fun,
Mm-hmm.
but that coming from such a better place and like, because I suck and I don't know enough, I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was a really fun experience.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I agree. I feel like the things that feel like they almost just, they bubble up from the belly in terms of like desire, and kind of like they give you that feeling of excitement, and like you feel like you're being pulled forward. Like, to me, that's like a somatic yes. Like, if your body's saying yes to something, like, yeah, go
figure it out.
That's
go.
Great. And you may not know why, you know, right away. And that's almost, I think, better in a sense. But like, something good is going to come from that.
That was for me, Tony Robbins. I had not even known much about him, and a friend's like, hey, I'm going to this thing, do you want to come? And I'm like, that's just so much money. And then I was like, oh, actually it's not as much. And I like did a little research, and I go, and I had the most fun, almost the most fun I've ever had, maybe even. It was so fun. And, you know, it's lessons like that where I'm like, maybe sometimes it doesn't have to make the most societal sense of like
Mm-hmm.
how you would spend the money,
Mm-hmm.
and like letting your body pull you there,
Mm-hmm.
or like the fun button pull you there,
Mm-hmm.
your gut check pull you there.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that the other thing is that I find is true for the majority of my clients and friends and just people in general, is that we often don't give ourselves enough credit for everything that we've already done, for everything that we've already learned, for all of our experiential knowledge of just having been a human on this planet for however long, and for our own internal truth, really, the things that we have learned just through our own experiences. And so, you know, one thing that I like to say in my group sessions and with my private clients is like, there's only 3 rules here. And one is you have to give yourself permission. And that permission is both to be where you are right now, to really allow yourself to sink into being of just where you are right now with everything that's come before and whatever you have planned ahead. But like, let yourself arrive here in the present moment, and also give yourself permission to pivot, to grow, to be different, to grow, to expand, and to not allow the story that's been up until now to therefore be the story for forever going forward, right? Permission to be somebody different tomorrow than you were yesterday. So permission is 1, give yourself permission. 2 is give yourself credit, right? And that's what I'm just saying, like, take inventory. What do you know is true? What have you learned? What in all of these different ways, whether it's through formalized education, whether it's through, one-on-one mentorship, apprenticeship, whether it's through autodidactic learning. So like just simply reading, teaching yourself how to garden, teaching your, trial and error, teaching yourself how to grow food, whether it's through digital education, knowledge commerce, online courses,
experience.
Yeah. Life experiences that you've had, travel and adventure, like take a full inventory of, what you've already learned and done, and give yourself some credit for that stuff. And also give yourself credit for all of the other aspects of life that you have been dealing with, right? Like, I think that there's people, I can think of some people out there right now who are beating themselves up for not having completed a certain degree or a certain education program. And yet they've been dealing with very severe chronic illness for many, many years, right? Or dealing with severe trauma for whatever number of years,
depression,
or grief,
anxiety,
right? And all of
losing
these,
a loved one, caring for your family,
precisely,
having a child.
Yeah. And all of these things are valid and valuable life experiences that are shaping and molding who you are. And just because we don't have like necessarily a societal, valuing of them, or like a way of kind of quantifying how, you didn't get X number of years of experience, but like, you got to give yourself credit for that stuff. So 1 is permission, 2 is credit, and then 3 is give yourself grace. And grace is simply the principle of like, you don't have to deserve it. You don't have to earn it. Like, you can receive goodness in your life simply because you're a human and you're worthy and it's available to you. Like,
grace for me is like, you get a chance today, and again tomorrow, and again the next day, and in this second, and happy new day.
Happy new day. Exactly. Yeah. So give yourself permission and credit and grace, and just let those things and that sense of charm, curiosity, and desire to be the motivating forces behind figuring out what you want to do. And then if those things are aligned, like, go educate yourself
and have fun.
Yeah.
Like, really have fun. That's then, gosh, when you're having fun and learning, it's like the ultimate flow state. I love it. I get fired up thinking about it. And that inventory, that's helped me as a tool a few times where, it checks in around the lessons, and you might have learned so much that not that it needs to be all, but everything hasn't fully integrated. And in the inventory, like, oh, I could spend a little extra time like rediscovering whatever that I forgot about, or when I first learned that I was in such a different place, and if I revisit it now, it'll click so much easier. And in that same inventory, like, what of the stories can you let go of, and put that to sleep? Like, thank you for the lesson of that. But if it's become a limiting belief, maybe your story at a certain point was survival and helped you get through one period of time that is no longer serving you today.
Agree. Had something on that. It just flew out of my mind. So I think that's great. So where could we search for more inspiration on this topic of addiction to knowledge if we wanted to go deeper with this, Linda?
Are you suggesting I held today's book club?
Take it to the book club.
Today's book club, I'm actually thinking of Year of Yes, How to Dance It Out, Stand in the Sun, and Be Your Own Person. This is by Chandra Rhimes. And this book, it's talking about how you can step into your life and say yes, and what can come. And it reminds me of like following your charm. And I think sometimes it's easy to have an idea of the way things should look, but when you can really step into what your yeses are, the miracle and what unfolds from your life from there. So
yeah, that's good. That gets me all excited to talk more, but that's all we're gonna give you for today. So we hope that this helped you. We hope that wherever you are in your journey with education, personal development, and lifelong learning, that perhaps you have a new sense of clarity or curiosity around your own educational journey, and that you go forward from today's episode feeling good about yourself, because you are good enough.
You rock.
You rock, and you are so worthy. So we just love you guys so much, and we appreciate being with you every week. If you enjoyed the show, please hit subscribe, write us a review, share it with a friend, and don't forget to connect with us on social over on the Instagrams at Rise to Thrive Podcast. And we'll look forward to catching up with you next week when we'll be dropping more gems.
Tune in weekly to Thrive Daily.